number of people watching, that's how I know we're actually live. It's good to be back, but oh my God, it is so early in the morning. Like the sun is literally rising onto me right now. That's how early this is for us.
It's nice. It's nice to be up bright and early, man. You know, we got up all excited to kind of aggregate the news of the day, and there is no news today. It's all yesterday's news.
Yeah. I mean, the sad part is, when we used to do this way back when, there was a reason why we were meeting so early. I can't think of the reason why we're doing this to ourselves right now, but here we are back again. Bitcoin Q&A is officially live, episode 1. How does it feel?
It feels great, man. It's great to be back recording with you. I'm excited about this show. So the premise of the show, can I give a brief overview?
Please. I was about to ask.
Yeah, it's Q&A, and we're here to answer 21 million questions about Bitcoin. It's going to take some time. We're going to pull some all-nighters, answer as many questions as we can. To kick things off, I think we're trying to keep these questions topical. So I was going to give a brief kind of overview of what we're going over today. One, court grants Grayscale petition for review and Bitcoin ETF case against the SEC. Obviously, big news yesterday. Pumped the price about 7%. I think we've since ticked down a little bit to about 5% jump. But in this crab market, it's pretty exciting. So we're going to go into depth on that, what that means. Should you buy the Bitcoin ETF? No. And we're also going to go into, hey, maybe Q will make a case for, there is a case for buying the ETF. If you're like an
I will take the opposite side of the argument.
Yeah, like if you're like a fireman, we'll get into it later. Okay. Elon Musk also obtained a license to store, transfer, and trade virtual assets. A lot of people reported this as Bitcoin and crypto. To
Bitcoin
me,
magazine.
I think no comment. I think it's inclusive of those things, but I think to say those specifically, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think we all know it's coming, but that wasn't specifically mentioned in any release that I saw. So we'll get into that later too. Q, do you want to cover our 3 questions for the day? Just shout them out so we can give an overview of the people we're talking about.
So as Alex mentioned, we're going to go over a few news topics just momentarily, and then the meat and potatoes of this actual show is our attempt to answer 21 million questions. So today's questions are: should I buy the Bitcoin ETF? How the fuck do I use NoSir? And is SHA-256 quantum resistant? But let's dive into the news first, and then we'll get into all of these questions. We'll start at the very top. Court grants Grayscale's petition for review in Bitcoin ETF case against the SEC. Alex, I think you kind of mentioned, the price and just the market in general reacted really positively to this news. I frankly, from the second I saw the price action to the way the news was discussed, I fully believe that this, unfortunately, is going to be one of those sell the news type of events. We're already seeing a drop down in price. And a reminder, this is not the approval for the ETF. This is just hey, the SEC has to almost like refigure out a way to deny the application. But it's worth noting that there are, I believe, 6 different applications live right now. So it's interesting to me to see the SEC continue to lose case after case after case, especially against just the broader crypto market, as well as Bitcoin oriented things like a Bitcoin ETF. But I'd love your thoughts, Alex, on just how you first react to this news and then what you're paying attention to next.
I think it's exciting for some, less so for others. I mean, if you're someone who just buys and holds Bitcoin, you're going to benefit a little bit from a price appreciation if that spot ETF goes through. And the reason for that is, I think in 2023, we actually crossed $10 trillion in ETFs globally, like across all asset classes. So that's huge. That's 20x the Bitcoin market cap right now. So that's a lot of inflow. if it's going to be spot, someone's actually purchasing and holding that Bitcoin, or attempting to. We could talk about that later, to match the, to back customer deposits. My issues with it as just someone who buys and holds Bitcoin and self custodies it are, it's basically very exciting for people who want to hold paper Bitcoin. It's just a guarantee to hold Bitcoin. It's not real Bitcoin. You are subjecting yourself to the same issue that Bitcoin was created to resolve, which is a third party custody issue. However, I will caveat, if you're like a fireman's pension somewhere, or an institution that is not legally allowed to purchase Bitcoin, and you want exposure to the price, I mean, this is something we need. This is a financial instrument, for example, that made gold much less susceptible to kind of like insurance and transportation fees. I mean, it digitized that. Bitcoin already has these qualities in a stronger form. But the problem is, I think, most institutions have kind of legal and board issues where they're not going to be able to pull a micro strategy and just, I don't think they even self custody it, but buy Bitcoin and hold it in reserve. So, in my opinion, it's kind of definitely a second best solution, but some Bitcoin exposure is always better than none. So, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with just like these pensions and different groups that have money tied up that they can't necessarily just go out and buy Bitcoin with directly. I think over time we will see those product offerings shift. However, I think they will have a harder time. They being different businesses like, oh my God, is it Unchained that does the Bitcoin IRA? Who does
Yeah,
the big
there's a couple. I think Swan is thinking about or even rolled out a Bitcoin IRA. There's a couple.
So I will say this, these products can exist right now and will get fast tracked in the present moment. But the second BlackRock sells and gets approval for the Bitcoin ETF, these type of projects will have a much harder time getting through. Because in my opinion, the only reason, to your point of why would I buy a Bitcoin ETF is, well, I have some money in a Roth IRA and I'm too young to actually access that money. The tax implications of taking money out of my 401k or my IRA are too high, but I could still get Bitcoin exposure. We obviously know all the different Bitcoin stocks, but if there is a Bitcoin ETF, that's what that would offer. But if I could turn around and just directly buy Bitcoin with my Roth IRA or with my 401k, there's no necessity for this product. So I think these two things are a little bit directly related, and it would not surprise me in the slightest to see those product offerings diminish the second a big player like a BlackRock has a Bitcoin ETF in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think something interesting that happened is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust discount. Net asset value narrowed to negative 19.6%, right? So that's bullish news. It's pumping up, but that's obviously like one of the fundamental differences and why investors would rather have a spot ETF over a futures ETF is these things get kind of disentangled on the futures side. The price does not, and actually rarely tracks that of the spot market. So it's just, it's more fair to investors. It allows for a more stable financial instrument and access to Bitcoin. And I think it's something that's pretty much inevitable. However, we've seen in the past, and especially of late, the SEC has this strategy of wild kind of prosecution. It's like spray and pray. And the intent was never to win. I mean, yeah, of course they hope to win, but they know that this is just going to slow and hold everything back and not giving clarity to people. And they're kind of acting in bad faith here a little bit, in my opinion. This is
Can you
just,
clarify they? Are you talking the SEC?
I'm talking about the SEC. Sorry. Yeah, Gary G. Um, I mean, you see this in I guess like the firearms regulation world too. It's just let's bury these people in court cases, deny, deny, deny. It'll take years to litigate, and we can get the outcome that we want and that our backers are happy with. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, talk more about BlackRock coming in, Q. What does that mean to you?
I mean, it's an indication that the rhetoric around Bitcoin versus the actual money feelings around Bitcoin are very disconnected. Um, I'll share this story. Way back in the day when I used to work at Wells Fargo, I remember one of my bosses literally telling me point blank, like he would have, I think it was Fox Business or CNBC, whatever one of those stocks, the financial market channels were. And he would tell me, he was like, I watch this not to know what to trade, but to literally know what to avoid. Because the only reason people go on these programs to talk is to essentially tell the public the opposite of what they're doing so they can take the money from the public. Well, what's the rhetoric been around Bitcoin for the last 12 months? It's dead, it's used by criminals, it's bad for the environment, et cetera, et cetera. We're starting to see that shift. We are slowly seeing that shift. New York Times released an article about a month and a half ago, essentially detailing how Bitcoin mining specifically is good for energy grids and the environment. And I think over time, over the course of the next year, especially, we will see a lot more mainstream media narratives shift. And it's due in large part because you have a massive influential player like BlackRock entering the fray. Um, I do want to be conscious, though, of we have the 3 questions. So I want to move on to the next topic, unless you have anything else you wanted to touch on regarding BlackRock here.
I just wanted to, not regarding BlackRock necessarily, I just wanted to touch on some interesting news that came out last night. Like amidst all the Grayscale celebration, the SEC filed a new sealed motion against Binance. So the details are confidential, kind of unusual step. These, non-public allegations against Binance. We all know that institution has a long and proud history of non-corrupt behavior and honest, market participation. So surely there must have been some kind of mistake.
Wait, are you talking about Binance or are you talking about the SEC? Because you could say that about both of them.
Yeah, no kidding. Great point. All right, let's move on. Question: should we talk about the price now? Since
well,
ETF
let's
was the
finish up.
positive.
Let's finish up on the news first. So we've got I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. So off of this Grayscale news, we saw Bitcoin price pump yesterday, up 7% at one point yesterday. We're starting to see it come back down a little bit. This is why I fall into the camp of sell the news. This is a really exciting short-term buzz, but Bitcoin has, in the shorter term, looked a little bit rocky, starting to waver. It ultimately, though, it's just been a really boring sideways market for the better part of the summer. In fact, it's almost like the volatility is getting really muted. Like Bitcoin could actually be a usable global currency, but who would have thought? What a crazy idea that the price didn't move for a while.
Yeah, it's been, I think we all got a little bit jumpy sitting here at 26 and then 25K for the last, it feels like 6 months. I don't know how accurate that is, but we've been here for a good minute now. And I don't know. I think it's kind of like you said, I think it's a sell the news ultimately event. I think it's unlikely that this rally is going to last because I don't know if we're going to see that follow through from the spot market. I mean, we are deep in the bear market. Nobody has any money. Institutions, everybody's broke. So this is kind of the last inning here. I think until we hit the proverbial halving cycle, kind of that halving is going to initiate some price momentum. I think nobody knows for certain what's going to happen, but if past experience holds true, 6 to 18 months after the halving, we're going to start seeing a price swing. And it usually starts to get priced in, in the weeks surrounding the halving. So, I mean, for now, this pump to, what are we at, 27.3? fine and good, but everyone jamming the big green button on margin all at once only gets you so far. I'm not. There's going to be a lot of liquidations to come, I think.
I mean, look, this is a pump for ants, and I am not an ant.
Yeah.
I'm a human being. So I will wait to celebrate when the pump is more appropriate in size and stature, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we were sitting at 50, 60K, 5% would be pretty fun, pretty interesting, right? But anything sub 50K, if it's not 10% or more, I mean, I'm not getting out of bed for that. So
Well, you got
I'm
out
just
of bed for me this morning. I'm so proud of you.
I'm just sitting here buying like everyone else and not buying any Bitcoin spot ETFs, buying cold, hard, non-KYC sats, putting them in cold
Fair.
storage.
I will buy the Bitcoin ETF, but specifically in my Roth IRA that I will not access for 30 plus more years.
Really?
Um,
I
I just,
cashed out my retirement in 2020 and bought
yeah,
Bitcoin with it.
I looking back probably should have. However, I think it's for the best that I have some money in there. And there are ways that I've been looking up, like how to access it before you're 65, that kind of stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. One of us will be right. One of us will be wrong. Or maybe both
Forced
of us will be right.
hodl. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's why I love these Bitcoin IRA products, because it's like you literally cannot sell the Bitcoin until you're 65 years old. And it's honestly brilliant in my opinion.
The instruments just have to remain functional and in existence for that long.
True.
Uh,
That's the long-standing debate I have with my dad right now of like,
really?
right, but like, like if I deposit $5,000 in my Roth IRA today right now, like am I even going to be able to access that account in 35, 40 years? Or am I even going to be able to, I don't know, use dollars at that point in time? But I digress. We're going way off the rails. I want to hit this last story. I guess we can't make fun of the way I wanted to, but long story short, there's some rumblings going on Twitter that essentially Elon Musk, X, Twitter, etc., have obtained licenses to operate within the digital asset realm. Musk has not been shy about the idea of making X an everything app. X.com was previously a payments app. In fact, when he had purchased the domain, he even said, he was like, oh, it's just sentimental value. And here we are with Twitter called X now. So it is without a doubt in my mind the next phase in Elon Musk's grand plan to make Twitter an everything app. I think we will have to be patient. There's some over exuberance within the Bitcoin community that, oh, this means he's adopting Bitcoin. Like, let's be really honest with ourselves right now. Do we really think he adopts Bitcoin before he adopts Doge? Like, this is the Doge father himself. And I'm not saying that as, oh, I want him to do that. I'm just, let's think this through a little logically here. Like, he has not exactly been Bitcoin's biggest champion, especially over the course of the last year plus. So why are we sitting here acting like, oh, this must mean Bitcoin? Like, I think we're projecting our own feelings a little bit too much into analyzing that piece of news. And I think more broadly, it's just a step towards making X an everything app. I think we saw, what was it, Damus have the issues with the App Store about around like, oh, well, you guys are tipping and we have to get a cut of that, et cetera, et cetera. I think Elon Musk is literally trying to avoid that scenario. But I think it's more likely that there are fiat payment rails on X when it launches than there are not fiat rails.
Yeah, I mean, I think one small correction. This is just a money transmitter license or several licenses for different states. And It doesn't actually guarantee that they're going to start to, fuck around with cryptocurrency or use digital assets in that way. Although that seems the likely move, just given Elon Musk's kind of history and actually the history of Twitter itself. You may remember we had Bitcoin tipping not long ago. We had I believe there was a proprietary strike integration too, but there are other, you could put in your own wallet as well. I think I remember. Twitter's also experimented with NFTs. I don't think those are, I think they were, they sunlit that program where you
But
could
these,
have the hexagonal profile picture and verify your NFT.
I
What a
don't
dumb
remember the
idea.
NFT exact date, but I remember like the tipping program that was under Jack Dorsey. Like that predates
Yeah,
Elon.
right. I'm just explaining the history of,
Okay.
Twitter playing with digital assets. I think it makes for a stronger case. They have some infrastructure there, even if they sunlit it, they have people who are experts in this. And if not, of course, they can get them. So I'm kind of with you. I don't really think this will be a pro Bitcoin move. I mean, we just had SpaceX sell. I guess that's another controversy. Was it all their Bitcoin? Was it some of their Bitcoin? Nobody knows. The press release was
It,
intentionally ambiguous. Who was it? Wall Street Journal.
it,
Bullshit
wa- it,
article.
hang on. It was, so I read it and I'm going to shamelessly plug the Market Disruptors YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Working with Mark Moss, he actually helped sort of explain this to me. It doesn't actually mean they've sold it. All that means is they repriced what they have. And because they repriced it at a lower price than where they had previously
Mhm.
had it, they can collect that loss. So it looks like on the actual
Oh,
balance sheet that they sold, when in reality they still hold it. They are just saying, hey, we're holding at a lower price, so therefore we're showing
yeah.
that our asset has declined in value.
It's an impairment and it's a problem.
Yeah.
Michael Saylor and 200 other big players have actually written letters um, begging for these regulations to be changed because they don't get to write upward when Bitcoin appreciates, 200%. They only get to mark the investment down. It's a disincentive for companies to hold this asset in reserve. My only point of contention there is the article did say, the original article said that they sold Bitcoin at some point. It said they sold the cryptocurrency. So I don't think they sold all of it. I mean, maybe they did, but certainly there's sells in the past. I guess what I'm saying is it seems Elon's affinity for Bitcoin is maybe kind of waning, or his faux affinity. We know he's a lot more loyal to Shiba, Doge kind of meme bullshit shit coins. I think it's more likely what you said. You'll see them use this for fiat facilitation of payments to creators, transfers. Maybe the creators are going to be able to exchange their credits or their fiat, content earnings for some kind of shit coin that trades. Who knows? I mean, let's just hang tight and watch this one. But for now, we know that Elon is making moves to turn X, formerly known as Twitter, into the WeChat of the West. Big centralized, surveilled everything app. So, I mean, with that, I would say go make a NoSir account today.
um, shall we dive into our questions?
Let's do it. What's up first?
So let's just hit the first one. I think this will be short and sweet. We kind of discussed already, but would you buy a Bitcoin ETF?
No, I I I,
So
I unless I had a business that couldn't hold spot for some reason, or if I had significant retirement that I hadn't already cashed out and bought Bitcoin with, then yeah, I guess I would consider it, but it's a second class, it's an objectively worse form of Bitcoin. It's a paper promise for Bitcoin. There's too high of a risk there. It's not worth it to me, even with the tax advantaged kind of savings. I would still rather hold in self custody without a trusted third party. But that's just me. Everyone's got their own risk profile.
absolutely. I think I want to paint a story for you, a scenario where I'm going to say an absolute yes. But I am with you that if I have dry powder, my preference is not to go and buy this. My preference would be to just go buy Bitcoin. But if you have a corporate job and you have a 401k and an employee match program, I think you're a little naive if you don't, try to max out that employee match, take the free money from your employer, and then all of a sudden you're given a bonus that you can use towards gaining Bitcoin exposure. To Alex's point, look, if you got a couple grand in your retirement account and you can absorb the tax implications of that withdrawal, speak to your financial advisor. Don't take advice from a guy who lives in his mother's basement, but like look into the different scenarios and how you can play it out. If you have 3 more years until you can access your retirement funds, honestly, in my head, all I'm thinking is, why the hell wouldn't I go and buy a Bitcoin ETF that then I don't have to pay taxes on those gains if I'm in a Roth IRA? Like, could you imagine if you could genuinely in 10 years, if you're 55 years old, you can access all of your retirement account and you could get exposure to Bitcoin gains tax free? Would you not?
Yeah, I'd be trading within that account is what I'd be doing.
100%.
But I would match, I would match to some proportion with real Bitcoin that's self-custodied. I mean, it's the only
Absolutely.
way. I think any individuals making this decision have no business buying the Bitcoin spot ETF without actually holding this asset, learning what it is, learning how to self-custody it. Of course, that's kind of an ideal world. That's not the reality we live in. The unfortunate reality is that the vast majority of people will probably never self-custody their Bitcoin, which is sad, and we can talk about another time.
That will be a question for another episode. But let's keep this moving along. I want to go to the next question. I know you did a lot of homework on this one, but is SHA-256 quantum resistant?
Oh boy, hitting me bright and early with the technical questions that I have no business answering.
You asked for this question to be on the show, Doc. What?
I know. And then I kind of fucked up and didn't do all the homework that I should have. So let's like, I mean, first of all, I would say this is something that maybe like gold bugs will give you as a reason for not buying Bitcoin. They're like, oh, digital asset, unsafe. These quantum computers, the secret quantum computers that the government has are going to, backdoor Bitcoin any day now. I've also heard, this prime factoring is going to be accelerated by quantum computers so immensely that, one-way hash functions are going to be fucked at SHA-256. If that were the case, though, that's your nuclear codes. That's the entire fiat financial industry. We'd have a bit of a canary in the coal mine, I believe, with Satoshi's original Bitcoins, which have never updated and kind of upgraded with the network. And then the various forks we've had over the years. So I think the easiest way to answer this is probably yes, there's some probability of risk there. But the most any current quantum computer has entangled, I think, is like 127 qubits. And there was a study to about breaking SHA-256 explicitly that came out about a year ago that said that to do it within 10 minutes would require a quantum computer with 1.9 billion qubits. We're at 127 right now. I think the quantum computer, and to do it within a day, I think it would be something, it would take quantum computers, they would have to become about 1 million times larger at minimum than they currently are. And the thing is, we can simply upgrade to a stronger hashing function. We can simply hard fork the network and improve Bitcoin. I mean, that's kind of a really drastic measure, but if you're facing something like a likely quantum attack, that's probably what you'd have to do. I mean, for my part, I'm going to rest easy for the next 5 to 10 years without even needing to think about this, really, because it's just a million times larger quantum computer would be needed. So I think we're okay. I'm comfortable. I think that's the general sentiment in the community. I don't know anyone, unless the news is like really, really dead, that's really waving the flag on like quantum computers are going to break Bitcoin. I mean, maybe we should look into it more. I know I certainly should, but I would say for now, you can't rule it out as a threat. But again, I think Satoshi's stash, along with a lot of other things in the world, including like the fiat financial system, are far bigger honeypots than your personal kind of Bitcoin holdings. I mean, I think there would be signs before it came to this. You know, there would be breakthroughs in quantum computing that kind of noted like, hey, we should probably start thinking about this as a community. And hopefully by then we've got consensus on how upgrades should be made in Bitcoin. That's actually, to me, that's the bigger threat. It's not quantum computing. It's like we're going to implement something like drive chains and fuck up Bitcoin ourselves. It's like more the community's weird ability or inability to raise issues in a coherent way, educate audiences about them, and make cohesive decisions on whether or not we should make certain upgrades to the protocol. You know, I believe that every protocol brings with it an inherent risk of unforeseen bugs and kind of computational behavior that we hadn't experienced before. So I think the more likely scenario is that we actually break Bitcoin before quantum computing does. Does that answer your question, Q?
No,
No?
but
Shit.
I do agree with you that on that side of the discussion, that it's probably more likely that we do something to fuck Bitcoin up. On the other side of the spectrum, though, one thing that, and if you said this and I just didn't catch it, my bad. My whole argument against like the quantum computers will hack Bitcoin, once that type of technology is actually readily available,
Mhm.
like who do you think is developing it? Do you think it's Nvidia, TSM, AMD, or do you think it's the US government? Genuinely.
I think it's both. I think the private and public sector, and then there's a little bit of handshaking going on between them.
So I have a friend who works for NASA, and he kind of explained to me how like the government contracts out these roles, and he's like, dude, I get a fraction of the overall design, and I'm just making a puzzle piece that then like NASA proper collects all the different puzzle pieces from all of the different locations they have from around the country, and they piece it together. I think it's something similar to that. So to your point, like a little handshake agreement, they're working together. But let's not forget, and I know the AI craze has people really excited, but before the AI craze, NVIDIA, AMD, and TSM all felt a huge boon off of the backs of Bitcoin miners. And the point I'm trying to get to is the fact that, sure, we'll see a quantum computer around the same time that we see a quantum Bitcoin miner. And it's almost like it's an irrelevant idea that, well, we're going to put the computer into existence, but we're not going to make any other things at that level.
Right.
We would have to increase the capacity of all of the technology around our computer systems in order to actually have it be compatible. How many of you use an older iPhone? You know how Apple, when you do the updates, it slows down the phone, and so you're not able to use it as well because they've upgraded their entire operating system. The next iPhone has processors that operate faster than the previous one, so they slow down the old computer until they force it to be obsolete. Guys, like this is a playbook that literally they don't even only use this with computers and technology. Like, what do you think Swiffer does? They literally have convinced you to continuously buy a product over and over again. We have created this cycle within our capitalist system. So I'm telling you right now, the second we see quantum computers, be on the lookout for your quantum Bitcoin miner. The S,
Well, we've got quantum computers. So the quantum miners might be coming. They're real quantum computers, apparently. But
Apparently,
I
like always make sure you add that little allegedly.
well, I'm just saying I
Allegedly.
haven't seen one. I haven't used one, but I'm told that they
Same.
exist and they're operating at around 100 qubits, and IBM. I think IBM is leading the pack right now. But I agree with you that actually something I did not do a good job talking about was, yeah, this is technology that is, ultimately like a tool. It's neutral. So if it falls into, I would say, the right or wrong hands, a miner, some pretty freaky things might be able to happen. But I know if I had a quantum computer, rather than signal that to the world, I would just quietly start to outperform everybody mining Bitcoin. And reaping the rewards of the network. Because if you signal that there's a threat, and at some point in the future, I promise, the article will get written and blown out of proportion, and the price will dump on the news that, oh God, Bitcoin's going to be cracked by quantum computers. I just don't think that's a proper threat at the moment. I think the incentives are such that anyone smart enough to be building and using a quantum computer would rather reap the benefits of that network, participate by mining Bitcoin and just outperforming all of the legacy miners and tech. But what do I know? We can dive back into this discussion another day. Any last kind of thoughts on that one, Q?
No, I'd say let's hop on over to our final question for the episode or
All
for the day.
right. Do we have any audience questions? Do we have any audience?
We have
Is
one
anybody
person in
out
the
there?
audience right now,
Let's go.
and I'm pretty sure it's my other YouTube channel.
Well, that's a start. Yeah. All right.
Uh, all right, so I'm gonna ask this because this is my question.
Okay.
How the fuck do I actually use NoSir? Because this is one of the most cumbersome social media, like, I don't want to say account platforms that has come into existence. And while I want to participate, it feels as though, and I remember seeing a meme when it first came out of like the guy running on one of those treadmills, but like also while standing on a bicycle and like juggling a basketball. It's like that's what I feel like whenever I go to Noster. Like yes, you hooked me up with Primal. I like finally was able to send post, but like, dude, I scroll and I'll try to like someone's post. Nope, does not register that I liked them. It's weird, man.
All right. That was a lot of FUD that I got to debunk here. So let's like start from the beginning. How do you use NoSir? Well, you can access NoSir through a client, or you can spin up a client of your own. It's kind of like how the email in general is open source technology. The internet. There's a lot of open source tech behind it. But you access it through something like Chrome, maybe you use Google, maybe you use Proton Mail. So you need to find a client that you like. And there's a lot of them out there. In the last year, there's been an explosion of NoSir users and developers, and kind of eyeballs on the repository are only growing. So I would recommend, for a smooth user experience for the first time, if you're on mobile, if you have an iPhone, I would download Damus in the App Store, Damus, created by my friend Will Kasserin. It was early, it was good. We all watched and helped it grow together over the last several months, and it's pretty spot on. I mean, it's become very flawless. Whenever I have trouble with another client, I just return to Damus and post on there. Um, if I don't know, I'm having trouble searching someone, I find the search function is pretty good. But basically, because it's an open protocol and not a closed software project like something like an X.com, you're you're able to create whatever you want. So there are versions of the network that look like Instagram, for example. There are other versions of the network being developed that are personal apps that have nothing to do with social media. I mean, this is just a protocol for communicating literally notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. So anything you can think of, you can build atop of this open network. And I think the main benefits of it are over something like a Twitter. I mean, we saw yesterday a Saudi man sentenced to death for his tweets. I mean, NoSir doesn't solve that problem particularly, but it does give anyone on Earth with internet access the ability to post whatever they want anonymously because there's no user data collected from the majority of these clients. And if there is a client you run into that's requiring your email or some personal information, you can say, no, I'm opting out of this. I'm going to go back to Damus, which collects nothing on me, which I don't need to verify any aspect of my identity to use. So to answer the fundamental question, how do I use it? You need a client. Maybe it's Primal on web or mobile. Maybe it's iris.to on web is a very smooth user experience. You need to generate a private public key pair. This is where it starts to parallel Bitcoin a little bit. So you're going to keep that private key, that NSEC private, and you're going to be very careful about what you reveal it to. And ideally, you're not going to reveal it to any clients because you're going to store it in a secure, maybe it's an NSEC bunker or a browser extension. And I know this might sound crazy if you've never used or managed private public keys before, but it's very much like a username and password in the sense that your public key is public. That's how people find you. That is you. That is your reputation, which makes up the majority of your identity. And the beautiful thing is it doesn't have to say anything about you particularly. So you can operate anonymously. This is great for whistleblowers. This is great for journalists. This is great for critics of any kind and just general for people who need free expression without being censored. You know, weird things happen when you censor entire populations. It's happening in the United States. It's been happening in China. I mean, it's always happened in every state. There's some form or other of this. So it's a great way, unlike or much like free transactions over Bitcoin that cannot be stopped or censored by the state. This is free speech. You know, code is speech. NoSir is free speech. This is a very liberating technology. And I would say that just because, what's that famous Snowden quote? Arguing that you don't need free speech. No, how does it go? Do you know this one, Q? Arguing you don't need, I'm forgetting the second part. But anyway, you not advocating for free speech because you have nothing to say is not really a strong argument. So it's something that everyone should be behind. It's something that everyone could support. I think that if they could see the full scale of what happens in states with severe censorship, when you start living, wake up one day and realize you're living in a version of communist China where you can't travel, on the public infrastructure or transportation because maybe you posted something online that criticized the wrong person and now suddenly none of your subway cards work, or maybe you're operating with the CBDC and you can't buy gas for the next month because you've been determined some sort of flight risk and you're being investigated for something you said online. Maybe you criticized Joe Biden. Maybe you pointed out the fact that he is mentally not there. And all of a sudden, you find yourself kind of censored and surveilled. So NoSir goes a long way in alleviating some of those societal and state pressures. But it's important to remember that it's a free and open source protocol that anyone can contribute to and use however they like. It's a neutral tool. So you can spin up your own client, you can run your own relays. That's an important aspect of it to talk about too. It's distributed technology. So I run a relay. Many people operate off relays and communicate their notes from their own personal relays. That might be some of the trouble you're having too, Q. I don't know how in depth you got with setting up your relays, but that's a different part. Okay, so rather than the cathedral model of social media where you post to Twitter, everything is contained on Twitter's servers that ever happened on Twitter. It's pinged around from the top down or from the bottom out. On NoSir, it doesn't work like that. So you're broadcasting from your part of the network and your relay is communicating with other relays, but you have to manually, well, it depends on the client, but that connection has to be made. I mean, we could set a one-to-one relay between us, Q, maybe between us and like our one viewer, and we would only be kind of broadcasting this show to that viewer, and we can have a closed communication system if we wanted to. So you can imagine that creates a lot of opportunity for people who want to make maybe niche interest groups. Maybe you're a sneakerhead and you want to do kind of like I don't know, some kind of like super fiat Nike shoe release group. Well, someone could spin up an enterprise client for that purpose. And there wouldn't be any outside noise. There wouldn't be any like of the Bitcoin shills wouldn't be coming in there. It would be just these relays communicating with each other. And you actually wouldn't see what's happening on the other side of the network. So in that sense, there's kind of a misnomer on NoSir now of like a global feed where, the Twitter, where you just are fed what's in the algorithm. You're just out there, kind of susceptible to whatever it feeds you. In NoSir, it's never truly global, right? It's always a function of what you're connected to. And obviously, if you want to be more connected and see everything that your friends and people are posting, you want to connect to these big relays. You want to connect to relays with some moderation. Again, moderation is not censorship, but you want to have an ability to see what people are saying without being exposed to maybe like, I don't know, violent beheading videos that are being uploaded by someone. Because, freedom of speech is two-way. It's a neutral tool. It's not going to be always used by people you like. Maybe there's like a pornographic kind of community. You're not keen on that. Don't want to see it. All right. So you change your moderation settings. That's not censorship. That doesn't stop the actor from acting or speaking or broadcasting what they need to broadcast or want to broadcast. But it does protect you, the user, and gives you a better experience. Yeah, so I don't know. I just give you a good kind of 5-minute rant on NoSir. What else can we dive into? Did I answer your questions as to why things might not be working? I mean, I'll admit it's a little rough around the edges. Some clients are in a newer stage than others, but most of them are only a few months old. So that's important to remember. And they're not well-funded. A few of them that are. Primal is. It's disappointing, actually, for how well-funded Primal is, how much it doesn't work currently. But I think they'll catch up. They all learn from each other. That's the beauty of the open source development as well.
I mean, look, I think I don't disagree with anything you said, especially as it pertains to things like, the right to freedom of speech, why we need this product, why this exists in the marketplace. I do think it's a very important tool. I just ultimately feel as though and this is a feeling I have about Bitcoin as well. And I had a lot of conversations with people about it at BitBlock Boom, but this idea, to make it about Bitcoin for a second, that every single person of the 8 billion people who exist in the world are going to self-custody. And of all of the people who NoSir could potentially have come over, I think the user experience, while the point of it is to have ownership over these things so that we're not giving it away to a potentially malicious third party or a bad actor or a wolf in sheep's clothing, I think in order to scale en masse, you have to create and cater to a subset of the population that may not want to have to go through the process of setting up a relay. And I think there is an opportunity for businesses within this ecosystem, both within Bitcoin and within the NoSir ecosystem, to have a more stream. Oh, hey, you've heard about NoSir. You want to get involved? Cool. Come make your account through our platform. It's the easiest, simplest setup. It's the least amount of things you need to do. These are the things that you're giving up. These are the things that we're handling on your behalf and that we will therefore have access to. But beyond that, like that's how you scale. And my next question on this topic to you is just like, how many people do you actually think in total are on NoSir right now?
Yeah, so I can give you some hard numbers. Give me one sec to pull them up. But to your point, yeah, that's exactly right. So we need to make there's this trade-off that everyone makes in society that I think that most people don't realize they're making every day, or maybe they fleetingly realize it. It's that user agreement that you click. It's the convenience that allows, Instagram to be as a smooth and kind of sexy, fun experience that you want it to be. It's because they sold all your data for like fucking billions of dollars, and they mined you, and you are the product, and you gave up all of your autonomy, ability to own the content that you produce on all of these platforms. X, Instagram, Meta, Threads, whatever the fuck we're calling it these days. All of these things are centralized trade-offs where you are handing over your privacy. Remember, privacy is only lost. It's not gained. You can't go back and reclaw that information or that content as much as you'd like to think that you can. Meta owns all those photos. Twitter owns all those tweets. They own the information that you provided them to get paid out as a content creator. They own your phone number. They've got, and they're using this stuff against you. They're selling it or leaking it. You are, the point is you are not in control of what happens with that information. The beauty of NoSir is, yes, there are still, you have to be privacy forward if you want to preserve your privacy and be thinking about this, but you don't have to give up anything to use it. There's always, you can always run your own client and provide your NSEC, which is randomly generated, and your NPub, I mean, this key pair, right? Your NPub becomes your identity. That doesn't say anything about you. It's a meaningless string of letters and numbers, right? From that point on, you can go on to authenticate yourself from some website service. You could create a NIM. You could use your real name if you choose to. But my point is, I don't think this is the hard part of the user experience. It's certainly novel, but these clients have made it pretty, I mean, it's like bright red letters. Do not enter this. Keep this private, this NSEC. It's your password. So, if you're used to any kind of key or password management, I think most people can handle that if you simply can follow directions. It takes 2 seconds to make a new account because of this, which is beautiful. So if you do fuck up your NSEC, you can spin up a new account and get things right in only seconds, right? All the kind of accounts already exist that are in existence, right? It's just kind of a matter of the ones that you've generated access to. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think that the trade-offs that you're seeing, Q, are in the name of something good and something we need to see more of in this society, which is a little bit more consciousness paid to our privacy and our autonomy as humans if we want to maintain any semblance of freedom in this life. I think the experience is okay. I mean, I'm decently technical. I'm not a developer by any means, and I have a great time. I mean, this is my only social media for months. I just use this thing, and it's got budding communities. There's new interests. To answer your question about how many people use it, I believe we're at 557,920 accounts so far. Users. Now that's not daily active users. That's accounts that have been spun up, right? And engaged
Right, just like
with in
Bitcoin
some way.
wallets, you can have multiple accounts.
That's a great point. Yeah, you don't know how many people that is. You'll never know how many people are using it. You can get a better sense by looking at how many people are posting per day. And I would say that number, to be honest, is probably less than 100,000. There's a lot of bots. It's a small community. When someone big jumps on, like Edward Snowden jumped on yesterday and said a few words, and you can interact with him. He responds to people. He sends people Bitcoin. People send him Bitcoin. It's great fun. When someone like that engages with it, you can see the numbers go off the charts. I mean, there's no question that Jack Dorsey, Edward Snowden, RFK Jr., I mean, these are all people that boosted the user numbers significantly. But I think the important thing to remember is we don't have a marketing budget. I mean, some clients might, but for the most part, every user added is someone who is fundamentally curious on some level, probably about, privacy and freedom and new budding free and open source software. So it's kind of a different metric than like how many people use Twitter daily. It's like, all right, well, give us a few years, let us grow in the direction we grow in, and let's see what we can capture. But no one really is monetizing directly off the user count. I mean, that would be a pretty wild thing to do for a client to go and say, I've got 500,000 accounts on my platform. Well, it's not your platform. You don't own it. And none of these people are obligated to use it. You can access it through whatever client you want. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't know. I hope that explains some of the differences and the trade-offs a little bit. I know we'll get more into this subject in future episodes, so maybe I'll stop ranting for now. But you should, at the very least, go and try it if you haven't. Go in the App Store, download Damus, or go to iris.to, spin up an account. Nothing to lose. It takes a few seconds, mess around, make some friends. It's a lot of fun.
I also will challenge anyone who actually is listening to this podcast. If I can do it, so can you. And yes, I had a lot of help. Shout out BTC Sessions, because his videos are literally the only reason I'm able to operate within this highly technical world.
Definitely big shout out.
I think that does it for episode 1. Do we want to leave anyone with some words of wisdom, final thoughts before we depart?
Let's just mark it. What are we at? Bitcoin price 27,125 sats per dollar, 3,687, 528.2 billion market cap. And the most important metric of them all, we're at block height 805,467. Incredible. Flawless operation. 14 years. Bitcoin's a beautiful thing. So as always, send us in your questions. We've got room. I think we have 50 or so questions drafted, and we have about 20 million left to go. So send us all your questions. We'd be happy to answer them. You can DM either Q or I. Big shout out to our producer, Tino, for helping us put together the show today. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Leave a comment. Let us know a question down below.